Hello and welcome to the Dizzy Red Panda podcast, a podcast about all the crafting projects that have us dizzy with excitement. And that's as good as it's going to get this week.
Absolutely.
This week we have knitting.
I'm Katie. I'm from Duluth, Minnesota, and I am on Ravelry and Instagram and as Nerdy in Plaid.
And I'm Cheryl outside of St. Paul, Minnesota. I'm on Ravelry as Red and Instagram as Red Knitter.
Show notes and links can be found down below, and always, if you have any questions or we mention something and it's not linked, let us know because we can do that right away too.
Yep.
Today we have final objects, we have some whips, and then we also have a discussion about organizing our crafting and planning. Our crafting? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Cheryl's in charge of this discussion, so I don't know why I was summarizing it.
Thank you for summarizing the thing that you haven't heard me say yet.
Or read that in the show notes at all yet. So
perfect.
What are you wearing today? You look nice and cozy in a sweater.
I am cozy today. We've had kind of a cold snap here, so I'm wearing my Georgetown cardigan from a couple years ago now. So it's a cozy worsted weight cardigan that I made in Cascade 220. Very nice and warm.
That does look nice and cozy. I am wearing a shawl scrunched up around my neck today. I'll take that off. Well, I'll attempt to take it off. How's that?
If you can fish it out from under your hair.
Exactly. So this is actually a pretty large shawl, so I'll just go grady up.
That is so pretty.
Grady up. Oh, look, it has a picot bind off. I did a full picot bind off.
I'm so proud.
This is huge. So the halfway point is here.
Go, go, go.
Yep. This is very, very big. This is the Pebble Beach Shawl by Helen Stewart, so the Curious Handmaid. And she has this pattern in 3 different sizes. So it started out as the Pebble Beach Shawlette, and then she kind of revamped it and made it 3 sizes. And so this is in fingering weight, and I think this is the largest size. I started doing the medium and then I went to the largest. So this is actually a set of mini skeins from Frabjous Fiber or Wonderland Yarns. And she does beautiful skeins of yarn, and their grays are gorgeous. And this is the Too Much Pepper mini skein set. I also had some extra gray in just a full skein. So the mini skein went down to about here, and then I had some extra of the dark gray, so I just continued on because I wanted it larger. And this is one of the first times I've been able to wear it because I finished it last April, but it's been hanging in the shop as a sample, so I was like, I would like it back. This is a beautiful knit, though. I really love her patterns, and I have several of them. Helen Stewart does the Shawl Society 1, 2, and 3, which is like a shawl pattern club, and her stuff is absolutely stunning. So
that is, I love this sort of movement with the yarn overs in that main pattern. That is so pretty. And also it's a great use for mini skeins because mini skeins are always tempting, but I never get them because I have an issue with stashing leftovers, and I'm like, this is an awful lot like leftovers.
Right. I love mini skeins that are not different colors, like not random different colors, but I like gradients as well. And so I have a couple sets from her, and I absolutely love them, and I'm kind of hoarding them. So I thought this was a good use because it didn't seem too color blocky. And that was one thing I was concerned with. So I'm going to go straight into my final, one of my FOs then.
That makes sense.
Because I did another one. So I knit another one, but I did the shawlette size. So this is
that's
much smaller. But I think it's going to be a good size for its recipient. So this is the Pebble Beach Shawlette. So it's the smaller size. Sorry, as I fix a skein, or I fix a stitch. This is out of Misty Alpaca, which is a lace weight, but I don't particularly like knitting lace weights. So this is held triple. So I did it on a US size 8. So that would be what, 4.5 millimeter or 5 millimeter. And I got this yarn from a family friend who I had mentioned her previously. She is arthritic, and so she's starting to go through some of her yarn that she's not and gift it. So I had gotten some lace weight and I had gotten some cotton from her, and I had gone through it and gave away the stuff I didn't want, but I thought as a thank you present to her, I thought I would make her something. So I was a monogamous knitter for this. I did this in like 6 days, including blocking. I have to say, I'm pretty proud of that.
Very impressive.
Yeah. I made a lot of mistakes, but guess who ripped back and fixed them? And I wasn't sure I was going to have enough yarn for the picot bind off, so I didn't include one. I just did a stretchy bind off instead because I wanted this to be able to lay as flat as possible, and it did block out really nicely with that.
Katie, I'm seeing a lot of like morality in this knitting project. Like you were a monogamous knitter and you fixed your mistakes. And what is this? Is this a New Year's resolution that you didn't talk about last episode?
So with lace, I like it to be perfect. And if you make a mistake in this lace, it is really, really noticeable.
Yeah.
And when I'm gifting things, that's when I tend to get a little bit more and be a little bit more of a perfectionist.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted this to be nice. And so I did think back, and most of it was because most of my mistakes were because I couldn't count by 4 while watching TV. Let's be realistic. But yeah, I also added a little bit of an extra garter on the end to hold that down. To make sure that I'm not being too like self-righteous and moral in how I put together this and how quickly I put this together. I didn't block it using blocking boards and blocking wires. I did my lazy efficient method, which is I have a gull wing dryer, so it folds up. I've mentioned it before, like I got it from IKEA, and I just pinned along the top. So with clothespins, I wet this and, scrunched it up, got it quite dry, I would say, damp, and then just pinned it out along the top, and then gave the bottom a little bit of a tug to make sure that curve was nice. And I would say I'm pretty happy with that. It turned out really nicely.
Yeah.
So I will send this off to her in the next week as well.
Awesome.
Yeah, if you've never knit one of Helen Stewart's patterns, her patterns are fantastic. They're really well written. They're really clear instructions. And especially with lace, something that I appreciate is she uses a checklist system. So she has like a table set up. So it's row by row. So if you print out like the entire pattern for like the Pebble Beach shawlette, not just the size you want to make, it's like an 11-page pattern. But it's a table, and in one column it tells you the row that you're on. In the second column, it tells you the instructions for that row. In the third column, it has stitch counts for every single row, which is really nice. And then in the last column, it's blank, or it tells you what percentage of the way you are through, which is also really, really nice. So if you're like, oh, I'm almost through with my yarn, you can double check to see, am I going to have enough yarn for this bind off, or do I need to end early? And I really, really appreciate that about her patterns. So
that sounds lovely. I'm going to have to make one of hers because I don't think I have knit one of her patterns yet. So
I have a lot of her patterns, but this is the one that I keep going back to because I do love it. It's just so simple. I mean, it's just eyelets of varying types and frequencies. That's it.
Yeah.
And so I would say for people who haven't knit lace before, I would say this is a really good pattern to start on because it is intuitive. And you can clearly see when you've done something wrong. And if you're smart and use lifelines, you'll be fine. I didn't.
Cool. I almost never do.
I know. What else did you finish?
Okay, I was monogamous too.
Well, you normally are. Let's be real clear on that.
Yeah, lately I am. Oh gosh, see, it's the same as last episode. I'm picking lint off my knitting. This has not been blocked yet. I just haven't gotten around to it. But I finished the ridgeline pullover for my kiddo.
That's cute.
Yeah, I think it's really cute.
I love that texture on the yoke. That's
Mhm.
so nice.
Yeah, it's really nice. Here, I'll zoom in a little bit more so you can see it. I mean, you saw it in the cover
Mm-hmm.
image of our last episode. If you want to see a close up, it's over there. And I'll get pictures on Ravelry someday.
Mm-hmm.
Someday when I can get my kid to to model it, that's going to be
I
the
was going
thing.
to say sit still, but
Yes.
yes.
So I don't have a whole lot more to say about this than I did last episode, except that like I talked about the sizing issues with this last time.
Mm-hmm.
I actually put a note on my Ravelry page this morning since this is a fairly new pattern, so there aren't that
Yeah.
many people who have made it yet. So this is the 4-year-old size, and it is definitely not a 4-year-old size sweater.
Got it.
So I still would recommend this pattern because I think otherwise it's a nice pattern. It's cute. It's quick to make. Under 400 yards, under 350 yards actually.
Wow.
I think for a toddler sweater for a 2-year-old. That's pretty great.
Nice.
But just make sure you check the schematic if you're going to make this one.
Okay. Good to know.
That's
That
what I
one
got.
looks like a really cute one too.
Yeah, I think it is. He hasn't worn it yet. Honestly, I haven't tried it on yet, but it looks like it'll fit just fine. So
Okay,
I'm not
good.
too worried about it. All right, so what are you working on?
There's a cat right here who hasn't seen me in a little bit, and so she's a little anyway. Did I finish Windhelm last week? Or did I finish? I must have finished it right after.
Did you finish it or was it in progress?
I think it
I
was
know you
still in
talked about.
progress.
Okay, sure. Let's go with that.
That's mine. I have peppermint tea over here, and Gigi also really does love all things peppermint. And so she's trying to stick her paw in my tea. Anyway, so sorry. Keep the cat talk to a minimum, Katie. So this is the Windhelm hat. I suppose I could put it on. It's not like my hair can get any worse today. So this is the Windhelm hat by T. Shep. This is not the first time I've knit it. It's a really lovely slouchy hat. It's a free pattern on Ravelry. And it's just wonderful. I really do love it. Sorry. Hair adjustment. So it has some really nice pleat detail. I did actually go the full length on this one to make it slouchy. And it blocked out a little bit bigger than I thought it would as well. So this yarn, by the way, is very multicolored. This is an Araucania Pangapuli. And it's one of their wool yarns. And so it's very dark in general when I hold it back, but it is a very colorful hat. So I don't know if this will be for me. I'm pretty sure I'll just stick it in the gift box and have somebody else wear that one.
Lovely.
Yeah, the last thing I finished was... Oh, I forgot to put this in the show notes, so you probably didn't see it. Yay! Katie is organized today. This is the Banff hat by Tin Can Knits. And okay, that color contrast is showing up really, really nice on screen. This is a Tin Can Knits. I love their designs. They're very well explained. They're just a great design team. I would say it would be an understatement to call myself a fangirl. I love their stuff. So this is their Banff hat. It comes in many sizes, as do all of their patterns, from baby right on up to large adult. This is the medium adult, but one thing that I'm learning for color work is that I have to go up a needle size for my color work for my tension. And so this turned out probably more of an adult large size, personally. So again, I'm not sure if this will be for me, but because I feel like it's a little bit tall, and I cut out a couple of rows of decreases as well. But I feel like most of their hats are also pretty tall. This yarn is Peace Fleece worsted, and it's in 2 green colors. And I'll put them down below so you can run them across the screen so you can see them. In person, I don't feel like this contrast is as much. Like, if I could just keep it on screen and as I was wearing it, that would be great. I did the test where you take the two strands and twist them together, and it looked fine. I did the test where you take a picture of both skeins and then turn it to black and white, and it passed the test that way. Um, I did all of those types of tests, but I'm not actually very enthusiastic about how it turned out in real life, just in the colors. The yarn is
Mhm.
rustic to work with if you've never worked with it, so it feels a little bit ropey when you're working with it. But once it washes, it fluffs up, and it's such a wonderful, warm, soft hat.
Mhm.
There's a little bit of veg matter, but that doesn't bother me. I mean, it's at most something like that big, so
Yeah.
it's not that big actually. And I would say this is also a really great first color work pattern because it has like an 8 row or an 8 stitch repeat, and some of the rows are pretty repetitive, so you can kind of get into a groove of what you should be doing and what you should be looking for. But then again, each row is different, but how it balances out. So I will be knitting another one of these. I have a light blue that I'll probably use for the background, and then I'll take the dark green and
Oh,
use that
nice.
for a trees, because I know that will be definitely a high enough contrast for me. And I'll probably go down a size I'll probably knit the adult small. But then again, like an 80 stitch hat for an adult seems really, really small to me
Yeah.
because I'm used to like a 96 stitch hat for like a worsted weight hat. So I'm still coming to terms with stitch counts and color work and how that works out and my
Yeah.
gauge. So I'm still working on that, and I haven't quite figured that out yet. I
Mhm.
think again that will come with time and experience.
Yeah.
Anyway, so those are the 3 finished objects I have.
Cool.
All right. What are you working on?
I just have one thing I'm working on right now. Again, feeling monogamous. But here we are. So, last episode, I had mentioned my plans for my next big project.
Yes.
And I am happy to report that they have panned out. So that's really exciting.
Oh, look at
Um,
you go.
yeah, so I have cast on for the Lillian cardigan by Alexandra Tavel, which is how I'm choosing to pronounce her name. And I'm holding Blue Sky Alpaca together with Knit Picks palette. So the Blue Sky Alpaca is a cream, and the Knit Picks palette is called Abyss Heather. It's a heathered navy.
That's
And
stunning. I really love how that's working up.
yeah, so it's a fun marled effect as a result. Now it's kind of an uneven marl because I'm holding two together. So you can see that like sometimes it's a little more blue and sometimes it's a little more white as opposed to a true marled yarn where it would
Right.
be, the same throughout. That's fine with me.
Mhm.
I'm okay with that. And then there's a nice, I don't know if I'll be able to get this on camera today, but there's a nice little halo going on because of the alpaca in there. So
That halo is showing up just fine.
great.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's just going to be a super cozy sweater when it's done, which is exactly what I'm going for. I am not going for, the most flattering sweater that I have ever made because I'm not sure that this is going to be that. But I am going for a very cozy sweater that I can wear around the house. So I'm excited for that. So anyway, holding the two yarns together got me about a worsted weight. And I was surprised to find that I did get gauge with size 10.5 needles.
Oh,
And
good.
so I'm on track there. The looser gauge might mean that this ends up growing, especially with the alpaca content. But again, I don't think I care.
I think the wool in there will definitely help that though.
Yeah, it should give it some structure.
And I really do like that uneven marl because I
Mm-hmm.
think you can see the stitches a little bit better. Um and I think it provides a nice visual.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think it'll be good. It's a really basic sweater pattern, and actually, it's sort of, I don't know what they did with the rights on this pattern because it is free on her blog as I guess she did a collaboration with Lion Brand. So it's free on
Okay.
her blog, but then you can pay a couple bucks for a PDF download. So I'm not really sure what that's about. Like, I haven't really seen that sort of
Okay.
pattern distribution before, but that's where she's at. But because, like, there's no shaping in this thing, it's just a
Right.
straight up and down cardigan. So I'm freeloading and just using the blog version of it because, like, I can just look on my phone, like, it was do the ribbing at the bottom and then knit for 23.5 inches until you get to the armpits. Like,
Wow.
I don't need to look at because it's a longer one. It's like a hip length
I
sweater.
know it's a longer one, but bottom up sweaters are a little intimidating for me because of the knit forever and you suddenly have an armpit.
Right. Right, but you're knitting forever on size 10.5 needles.
So it does go pretty quick.
It goes pretty quick. So this is the back of it, which you can't tell because it's rolling, because, stockinette. It'll be fine when it's sewn into the... So obviously it's a in pieces and seam it when you're done sweater. But I got the entire back done in a week.
Wow,
So,
that's really fast.
yeah, it's pretty reasonable. I am going to have a ton of ends to weave in because I mentioned last time that this is reclaimed yarn from our previous sweater. And so there are more breaks in the yarn than there would be if I had knit with fresh skeins. So you can see, like, a lot of these ends are just the alpaca that I had reclaimed. But I think that'll be just fine, and I've got one of the fronts started now that I just started last night.
Nice. Very nice.
So that's all I'm working on right now. I have plans to start something new, but I need a little brain power to do it, and I just haven't sat down and figured it out yet. So. There's math, and I just don't want to do math right now.
I completely agree.
So what are you up to?
One of my projects I left at my partner's house, so we can't show that one.
That's fine.
It was very funny. Can I drop it off at your house? Are you needing it? I'm like, no, I'll just pick it up next time I see you. It'll be okay. He's like, are you okay? I'm like, yes. I'm also working on a colorwork hat, which is in a safe spot, which means I can't find it.
Right.
Quite literally. I was working on this maybe 2 nights ago, so no idea where it is. So I've also been like rearranging and decluttering my house, so yeah, who knows. So I picked up a project that is my cast on 96 stitches knit forever hat. I'm currently on the decreases right now. And I need to put stitch markers in. I'm at that point where I really, really need to put stitch markers in. This is a nice tweedy yarn. I do love knitting with tweed. I don't feel the need to pick things out as some people do. I'm not calling people out. I just know that's sometimes a thing. People feel the need to pick out the neps. This is a Plymouth Homestead yarn in their tweed, and it's in their gray tweed. They only have one gray tweed. So, and this is, again, a lovely yarn to work with, and I really, really appreciate it and enjoy it quite a bit. So yeah, that's all my current works in progress. 2 that are not able to be shown for various reasons, and 1 that's really boring. Welcome to Katie's side of the episode today. All right, so you're working on a sweater. I'm working on, like, weird hats. Let's talk about, so last week we talked about our goals-ish or bullet point lists of things that we want to work on. And you talked about how you organize your knitting and organize your crafting. And I want to hear more about that. The only way that I really organize myself is I'll write down my goals in the beginning of my planner and then use that as a checkoff system. But I don't do anything beyond that. So it sounds like you have a really interesting system. And I want to hear more about it.
Okay, so I typically organize my crafting electronically just because I don't like messes, and it would look messy if I wrote it out. Like, there would be a lot of crossing out and arrowing around and rewriting things, and I just can't do that. So I keep track of a lot of my to-do lists, like, not just for crafting, but for other parts of life. I do a lot of that electronically just because it lets me rearrange things in a way that is pleasing to me.
That visual aspect is really, really nice.
Yes, definitely. So that's my first disclaimer. And my second is that my crafting right now takes place in a Harry Potter knitting and crochet house cup context. And we talked about this on the podcast before, but if you're interested, look up Harry Potter knitting and crochet house cup on Ravelry. Maybe you can drop a link in
I'll
there.
just drop a link down below because it's a whole lot of words.
It's a whole lot of words. Thank you for dropping a link. But it's an online game where you craft for fake internet points, and most of that crafting is done on a monthly basis. And so that's sort of like the context that I'm thinking of is like what I want to start and or finish in a given month.
Yes.
So
I absolutely agree with that.
Yeah, so that's where I'm kind of at with my organization. And for the last, I don't even know how many years, probably, I would say at least 5 years, maybe closer to 10, I've been organizing my projects in Microsoft OneNote, which is like a program in the Microsoft Office suite. Like Evernote would be really similar. It's just like an electronic notebook. I really like it. I still use it for lots of things. But I was finding it a little bit clunky for my purposes and wanted something less clunky and prettier. Let's be real. I like it to be pretty, and it's 2019, and there are many pretty options out there. So I had recently switched over to a program called Trello, which is free online. I think there are certain elements that you can pay for, but for my purposes, I'm using their free version. I had switched to that for my dissertation project management kind of stuff. And I was liking it for that, and I thought, well, this might actually work for my crafting too. So I've started putting my crafting projects in there, and I just thought I would share that in case other people would find it useful, especially if you have, like, a lot going on, which I think many of us have a lot going on. Okay, so what you'll see is that I've got this board called Making, and this is all of my crafty stuff. I have other boards in here for my dissertation stuff, but those are like separate, and you can link across boards from what I understand. I haven't gotten into that. I'm just scratching the surface of like what you can do with stuff. So then within the board, you can make these lists, which are the columns that you're seeing here. So right now what I have is what I'm currently making, what I would like to make this month.
Okay.
My knitting queue, my sewing queue, and my UFO list.
Got it.
And then within the lists, you can make these little cards. So the whole thing looks kind of Pinteresty, really.
Yes, it does. That's exactly what it reminds me of.
Except that I think you have more ability to organize within a board than you do within Pinterest, unless that's changed since I used it last. I haven't been using Pinterest a ton lately.
Can each one of these individual, like within your list, for example, within your UFO list, can you rearrange those within the list itself too?
You sure can.
Nice.
So that's the nice thing is that like the cards can be rearranged within a list or move across lists.
Nice.
So like when last month I had the Lillian cardigan in my knitting queue because I knew it was something that I wanted to cast on in the new year, but I hadn't started it yet. And then when I started it, I moved it over to my currently making section.
Got it.
Right. So you just drag and drop across the list. And I added, for a lot of these, I've added in the pattern photos because I like that I can have that visual element. You don't have to do that. So like you can see under this month, I have knitting project bag because I just have sort of a, like, not even pattern, like a way of making project bags.
Right.
And I have a picture for that. So I didn't put anything there. But you can do, like, within it, you could do a to-do list, which is something that I use often for my dissertation stuff. I'm not really using that for this. You can do percentage complete, if that's something you want to track. Again,
and again, you like to track that kind of percentage complete as well.
I'm not doing that in here.
Oh, okay.
Because that's not something I normally track with my sewing. It is something I do with my knitting, but that's something I use my Ravelry notebook for.
Right. Okay.
And there's definitely some crossover between what I'm doing here in Trello and what I'm doing on Ravelry. So there's some redundancies going on there, but I think I'm okay with it.
Got it.
So yeah, I'm finding that this is a nice way to kind of take stock of what I have and like look at it in a way that just a written list, like because it has the visual elements, I think it gives me a better sense of like what I already have stuff for, like, oh yeah, I wanted to make that thing, that sort of thing. So I still need to flesh out, especially my cues, because I know I have like a bunch more stuff for sewing projects that I have not put in here yet. But that'll give me a much better sense of, what I have ready to go that I could just get started on.
Exactly. So, can I ask why you're choosing? I know that Ravelry has a lot of features. I know one of the things that they've been highlighting, especially at the beginning of the year, is like that project challenge list
Mm-hmm.
where you can create due dates ish for things. Um, what does Trello offer that the Ravelry notebook and features doesn't offer that you like to use it for?
I don't put my sewing projects on Ravelry.
Right. Okay.
I only put my knitting and crochet projects there, and I have lots of sewing projects. I'm not spending as much time sewing right now as I would like to, but I still have a lot of projects that are either, UFOs or I have the supplies for and I haven't started yet. And I want to be able to have a way to bring those together with my knitting stuff. So I'm thinking about my entire crafting time
Got it.
instead of like just this one element of it, even though right now knitting is what I'm doing more of.
Exactly. Okay, that's what I was wondering. Just because um, Ravelry does have many nice features, but
Mm-hmm.
it also limits the number of fibery things that you can have of what
Right.
it
And
addresses.
from what I understand, like if you're getting technical into user agreement stuff, it's not supposed to be used for non-Ravelry crafts.
Right.
So,
Which
although
makes sense.
I totally have my PhD in there as a Revelry project, and it's been there since I started, and I haven't
And
gotten in
I think
trouble.
you should. It totally makes sense for you to do that.
And I've seen people put like their pregnancies in there and whatever.
Yes.
So
Got it.
it's not like it's not happening. It's just it's not built for that,
Right.
and I wouldn't be able to do quite the connectivity that I can here, where I can link up to um, a website like Pattern Review if I want to,
Got
where
it.
there are a bunch of reviews of sewing patterns that can be really useful when you're working on that.
Yeah.
I haven't gotten into doing that yet, but that's something that I could definitely see it being useful for.
Got it. That absolutely makes sense. And it's nice that you can link between boards as well. Or it has
Hmm.
that possibility just because um, I think if you are working on many different types of projects, that can be helpful just to keep yourself organized. So yeah, I can see exactly
Yeah.
why you would use this.
Yeah, and you could, if you had like all of your life on this, I know a lot of people use it to organize vacations or, special events or whatever. If you wanted to put your whole life on Trello using a bunch of different boards, and then you could link them up and really get sort of a bird's eye view of what you have going on
Right.
ahead, I think that could be super useful. I'm not finding that it's what I need for like my work. Work isn't going to go into Trello right now
Right.
just because of the kind of work that I do. It doesn't really require it.
Right. That makes sense.
But I could see it for right now. We're planning a big vacation that's going to have a lot of moving parts. I could see putting that in there as it
Just make sure you
continues.
have everything. And you've addressed everything that you need to.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've heard a lot about Trello just from some of the boards that I am on and how people talk about it for organizing like those larger projects.
Mm-hmm.
And I can see the appeal of it and why it would be useful and why you do that.
Yeah, and there's really not much of a learning curve, I don't think, in terms of just getting started.
Nice.
There's a lot of functionality that you can choose to use. There are additional plugins that you can add,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a limit as to how many of those you can do with a free version. But in terms of just like getting up and running with the basics, it's pretty simple.
Yeah. Is there an app or is it only online? As in, you have to have open up like Safari or Chrome
I
to be using it.
seriously don't know.
Okay.
I probably should know that, but I'm only using it on my laptop right now,
Okay.
just because I'm largely using it for dissertation stuff, and I do that on my laptop.
Got it.
So
Okay.
right now I'm only using it in the browser anyway, but I honestly don't know.
All right. Yeah, that makes sense. I'm curious to know how other people organize their crafting if they just wing it, which is kind of what I do.
Right. Right, but you have a lot of organization on the tail end where you're like tracking your
Yeah.
usage and stuff like that. So it's not like you're disorganized. You're just like prioritizing other parts
I
of the
really
project.
like to, when I want to cast on something, I'll cast on something. If it fits within one of my goals, great. If it doesn't, I'm okay with that too. So I tend to be a little bit, because I do smaller projects, I don't need to plan out that time as much.
Mm-hmm.
Versus if I'm going to be working on a lot of sweaters or garments, which is something that you do as well.
Mm-hmm.
Which makes sense, absolutely makes sense for how we craft and the different ways that people craft.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I want to know what other organizational things that people use. Have a good day. Make sure and like and subscribe us down below. Give us a thumbs up because I need to really explain that. I'm very visual today. Um, if you like us, ask any questions that you have, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks. All right. Bye.
Bye.